final thing. So if we think about this, Samantha, why are you making that face?
I don't know. I've just had a really big day
Okay.
already.
So what are the two most important parts of the life cycles of the metazoans that we need to think about? Ova and adult. So if we think about that, then this makes it easy. And we already made the decision that we were only going to be responsible for the genus unless it had multiple representations. And there are only two of those organisms, right? And that's Trypanosoma, and then we'll get one today that's called Tania. Okay? Remember, Samantha's brought donuts in, and that's very nice, Samantha, thank you. Anybody who wants a donut, please come in and help yourself. Okay? Send me one of those cake ones.
You can take one of the rain and shit raw and eat one too. Yeah.
I love these are my favorites.
I already had a brownie.
Yeah, these are very good. Okay, so. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh.
Just because you grabbed the brownie.
It doesn't have to be.
Those are cinnamon cake donuts in the dish.
Thank you so much. It's very sweet of you.
Thank you, Samantha. This has made my day, this little bitty cake donut, which are my favorite. My wife thinks I'm crazy because I don't like real sweet things. I like things that are natural flavor.
Can you tell? I have a sweetie. That's what all this is. That is so good. Do you want that? This one? That thing is bomb. No?
I hate it.
Here I go.
Dude, they're terrified of my dog. They're terrified of my dog.
Okay, so let's look. So if we look at this image that's up here, these are all ova except for this one thing. Do you want to turn the lights off, Travis? I think it's. I think it will. I think Travis recording. I'm going to move this out of the way.
Which one is the non-ova?
This is the non-ova right here. Okay? So these things are very easy to really appreciate the difference in them. Although a lot of you will think they look exactly the same, but once I start to talk about why they're different, I think you'll see that they're real easy to differentiate. Okay? So let's go. So first of all, we want to look at the ova morphology. We want to understand the adult morphology, and we want to look at the infections or infestations. The difference is if they are causing some problem within the body, then they're causing an infection. If they are causing a problem in the alimentary canal, usually it's an infestation, because that's on the outside of the body. Okay?
You said infection of the inside, infestation of the outside.
Uh-huh. Okay? So remember, the metazoans are all differentiated based on the three S's. That's sex, not do they have sex, but are they monoecious or dioecious? Segments, do they have them, right? And their shape. Okay? The three S's. So if we look at them, the classes you'll need to know are Trematoda. Those are the flukes, they're flatworms, right? Not real worms. The Cestoda, which are the tapeworms, right? They're elongated, they have a head, the head's called the scolex. They have individual segments, the segments are called proglottids. These organisms are also monoecious, right? They're flat, they're not true worms. And then we have the roundworms. We have the true worms, right? And so those are the ones that are actually real worms. And we call all these other things worms because they're flat and squiggly, and anything that's flat and squiggly we think is a worm, but they're not true worms. Okay?
What is monosedaceous, or what did you say in
Monoecious and dioecious. Monoecious is the organism has one organism, but it has both sex organs.
Oh, yeah.
So it can produce and fertilize its own ova. Dioecious means there's a male and a
dependent
female.
on another?
Okay, good. So here are the organisms you'll need to know for Trematoda. It's Clonorchus sinensis, Fasciola hepatica, Schistosoma mansoni. For the Cestoda, it is Tania saginata, Tania solium. This is one of those organisms that you'll have to know both the genus and the species. And then also it's Echinococcus granulosum. Okay? The Nematoda, Ascaris lumbricoides, Trichuris tricura, the whipworm, Decatur americanus, the hookworm, Anaerobus vermicularis, the pinworm, Trichomonas causes a real severe skeletal muscular infection, and Dirofilaria immitis or Dirofilaria is the heartworm. Okay? So let's go, let's talk about these things. So here, I've color-coded them, right, with arrows that match the description. So up here, we're looking at the ova of Clonorchus sinensis. To me, you can see that it's oval in shape, it's pretty small, and the ova has an operculum. The operculum is kind of an opening, it opens up like this and the contents come out, right? That operculum comes to a point, it comes to an apex like this. But to me, this little thing always reminded me of a pumpkin seed. And so if you hear me say it looks like a pumpkin seed, then you're gonna know it's the ova of Clonorchus. Now that's only for this class. Please don't go out there to your folks in the lab, wherever you're working, and say, you know, the one that looks like a pumpkin seed, they're just gonna laugh at you, right? And so you took protein with you, and they'll just make fun of you, right? This is the organism. The organism itself is a liver fluke. It causes infections of the hepatic portal system. That's the biliary ducts, the gall, and the liver itself. Now, it can be found in other places also, but that's typically where it likes to hang out. So if I ask you what's the clinical significance of the organism, if you say it causes liver infections or it causes hepatic portal disease, all those are correct, okay? If you even say it causes septicemia or parasitemia, I would be okay with that also. But here is a way that you can think about this, right? So if you think about these infectious agents, a lot of times, based on the Latin terminology, oses, ices, or aces, you can add those endings to it. Okay, so I know that it would be a little hard for this one, but let's just think of Candida, which is Samantha's favorite organism. So you can say, if you don't know that Candida causes thrush or vaginitis, you can actually say that it causes candidiasis. Right? Are you with me? So let's look at Plasmodium. Right? So Plasmodium ends with the UM that is neutral, masculine, right? And so you can say that it causes plasmodiasis. That's a harder one to say. There are some ones that make it real easy, right? Trichomonas causes trichomoniasis. So you can get away from about talking about diseases if you don't know what they cause, but you know what the ending is, and you know that you can add an acis or an osis to the end of that particular genus and really talk about what infection it causes. Okay, yes ma'am?
So just to be clear, for something like this, you only need to know
Clonorchus. Okay, just the genus. Okay? So now let's move to the second organism. The second organism is Fasciola hepatica. This thing is huge. It will fit in the palm of your hand. Okay? It is a fluke. It also causes infections in the liver and the biliary ducts and the gall and all kinds of places. Right? But the difference is this thing is huge. Right? And it looks like a big gigantic leaf. Now there's another organism that looks like a leaf, but it's a different structure. Right? Yes, ma'am.
Is that the one that we saw in the liver that calcified?
That's correct. Okay, that's correct. Also, you can see the ova, and the ova is big compared to the ova we just saw. It also has an operculum. What's an operculum? Opening. But this operculum is flat, right? So Clonorchus comes to a point, but Fasciola is flat. The operculum is flat. So those are some of the clues I might be saying. I might say, take a look at this particular structure. This structure is large, it's oval in shape, and its operculum is flat by nature. That should immediately say, oh, that's an ova of Fasciola. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question, Tran?
No, just nothing.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw your hand like this.
So these two, we just need to know the genus.
All of the organisms that we're talking about, you just need to know the genus, except for those that have multiple representations.
Oh, I see.
And so that's Trypanosoma and Tanium. Those are the only two that you need to know genus and species for. You all voted on that, right?
Yeah.
the motion carried. Yes? I like to include a little parliamentary procedure when I can.
Like pirates.
That's right,
I'm
that's
sorry,
right.
so which one was it? Tania solium?
You gonna write one more?
No, I have it here, I'm just wondering which one is genus
Metazoans,
species.
Soma or whatever, and the protozoans.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I think the other one was the sleeping sickness ones. Chagas.
Yeah. So here you'll need to know either gambians or brucine or glucine. Oops. Here it's saginata or solium.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Those are good clarification questions, Jan. Okay? Here we go. So this is Schistosoma mansoni. Schistosoma mansoni, which you just need to know schistosoma, is the blood fluke. And this one breaks the rules of the worm world. The rules of the worm world is the female is always larger, and the rules of the worm world say that anything that is trematoda or cestota or monaceous, all nematoda are dioecious. This one breaks all those rules, right? So this is the ova. The ova has this little appendage. This one has this little side appendage, right? And that little side appendage makes this look like a caption bubble. So it's really easy to remember as a caption bubble. Okay?
I didn't understand what you said for a second.
A caption bubble.
Caption?
Caption. Like for instance, wow, or something like that.
Like in a comic book.
In a comic book or a graphic novel, right? So the ova, again, looks like this, looks like a little caption bubble. This, of course, this big old thing here is the male, and this little thing here that crawls inside of him is the female. Here you can see them, right? There's the male and there's the female. Okay? So they do this in order to fertilize the ova, right? This causes hepatitis, it can cause septicemia, it can cause parasitemia, but it really is gonna really cause a blood infection. That's where it's normally found. The way this gets into the body, this is one of those few organisms that can penetrate the integument of the body. So you're wading around in water that has this organism, and it can pierce your skin and get into your body that way. We do not have this organism in the United States, but we do see it from time to time with people coming over from other countries. Okay?
It pierces through the skin.
Any questions?
Disgusting.
It's pretty cool. All right, now we move over to the cestota. So remember with the cestota, they're gonna have a head, the head's called the scolex, and they're gonna have these individual segments. These individual segments are known as proglottids. And the proglottids have both a reduced form of the GI tract and a reduced form of the urogenital area, if you will, right? The genitalia. It has both the testes and the ovaries, and so it can produce its own ova and fertilize its own ova. Okay?
In each section.
Each section. So each one of these little sections has that.
So if it breaks off, it can just keep going and reach.
If they break off, and they do from time to time break off, whatever's left of the organism still obtains nutrients, and they can continue to propagate new fertilized ova. Okay?
Ovary and
What's that?
so it has both the female and the male.
Yeah,
Vivacious.
Or monaceous. Yes, ma'am?
So the fasciola hepatica, sorry to go backwards, but you said it's just huge and it'll fit in the palm of your hand, so like, and it's here in the United States, correct?
Yes, it can be here, but it's pretty rare.
So
People
you should like
usually-
watch out for that in fresh water and it'll just look like a leaf?
No, only if you're working with animals.
Okay, because it's found in their feces?
Yep.
So you're unlikely to just like go swimming and have this big giant leaf thing attached to you.
You know, if it is, it belongs to the same family, but we call it a leech.
And this one would get into your, you would eat it.
You would consume it, it would find its way to the liver. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Oh, and leeches are a real thing. I don't know if you've ever seen these things. They're kind of fun.
Got one on me last summer.
I've had one on me also.
Yeah,
I let it, until it engorged itself, and I took it off.
Guilty.
Huh?
Yeah.
You let it eat too?
Disgusting.
Yeah, I let it get big and fat, then I took it off.
Oh, it's disgusting.
What was the purpose? Cause it sounds not bad. for you.
I just wanted to see, what would it do, would it bust? I never
Do
busted.
they transmit any disease?
Oh, yeah.
Just-
But if
They
they were gonna
really-
transmit disease, it would have been in me already.
Yeah.
They use them in other countries to like cleanse.
Oh, we do here?
Or like-
blood.
We use them here too.
Is that
For
real?
wounds, right?
No, it's real. So I had a friend whose fingers got cut off, and they reattached them. So
Yeah.
his wife was smart enough that when she saw them, she picked them up and put them in some ice. And she had a little baggie of ice walking down the hall with his two fingers. They reattached them and they put some leeches to help the circulation go to those parts of the body. And the fingers were steady. Isn't
Do
that
we
cool?
use maggots too to eat away dead flesh? Is
Yes.
that a real thing?
We have medicinal maggots too. But the medicinal maggots only eat necrotic flesh. They don't eat live tissue, which
I just
some
only
do.
seen it on movies, so I didn't know if it was real or not.
They're real. Okay? All right, let's go on. Okay, looky here. So first of all, this is Tania saginata. It is the beef tapeworm. That doesn't mean that it's only gonna infect cattle. That just means that when it was first characterized, it was characterized as parasitizing the cattle. But it can be in any organism, including us. These are fairly long organisms. They can get up to 100 feet long. But the difference is you look at the scolex, and the scolex for Tania saginata only has suckers. Okay? So if I show you a scolex and I say, check it out, these things are the only things that show up, then you'll look at them and say those are suckers, therefore it's Tania saginata. The ova are perfectly round and they are corticated. What that means is that there's a bunch of little pieces that are protecting the ova. So if you just see me kind of cutting it up a little bit, there's a bunch of little layers in this thing. Makes it very hard to break apart.
Let's say a cracker.
Yeah, so the only thing that will break it apart are the intestinal acids. And so it requires that to make it softer so that when it gets into the small intestines, it'll break apart. And an immature form will attach to your intestinal tract, and then you're just gonna have a whole bunch of it at some point.
So is that kind of why they have a bigger,
Oh, no. Because when it hits that first lumen, it's gonna be broken apart, and when it gets passed on, it'll be able to survive. So when it gets into the intestines, that's when it starts to extinct. Yep.
Do you have a picture on the previous slide of the Teniasolium hooks?
Yeah, it's coming.
Oh, okay.
So Teniasolium, here it is, and so you can see there are the suckers and there are the hooks. This is the pork tapeworm. Again, because when it was first described, it was described as a parasite of pigs. So it got the nickname pork tapeworm, but it can infect just about anything that eats anything, right? So not only things that consume meat, but things can consume anything because it's fecal oral transmitted. Yes, ma'am?
How do you want us to separate their ovas compared?
Can't. So if I was to ask a question, if I showed you that, because all the ova here look exactly alike, and again, when I was trying to figure out which of the organisms I wanted to use, I could have selected other organisms that the ova all look different, but I wanted to utilize the more common organisms, and these are the more common organisms, so I decided to use these three. But their ova all look alike. So the only way you can differentiate them, if I was to ask the question, what is this structure, you would say an ova, and I would say, name a genus that produces this. You have a choice of saying Tania or Echinococcus. Okay, which Echinococcus is coming up next.
Or you can say class, Metazoans or something?
Yeah, I might say something like that.
So for the Tanias, do they just kind of usually have this?
Their ova are almost exactly, you cannot tell them apart. So the only way you can tell apart is by looking at the scolex. Okay? Echinococcus granulosum. Oh, well, this is a comparison, so I'm sure Mr. Eric likes to see these kind of things. So here you can see the scolex just has just has the suckers, right? This is Tania saginata. This one has hooks and suckers. Looks a little bit more ominous, right? So it's Tania solium. And then which one is this one? Saginata, and that one? Solium. See how easy this is? Why is this hard?
Do we have a word bank?
Solium.
No, this is not high school, Samantha. We do not do word banks in college. Do not tell me that some of the A&P instructors are doing word banks. Do not tell me that. I will get grumpy. Okay? All right. Here's Echinococcus. Look at the ova. What, does it look any different than the other things? No. But look at the actual organism. It's a very small organism. It has a scolex and 3 proglottids, and that's it. Now, the only proglottid that is mature is this one. The other 2 are immature. But this thing really is the bad boy of the group. It will infect every single cavity of the body, including the brain and lungs, and it'll start to be a problem. This was a big problem at the very early stages of the AIDS epidemic in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, and probably Germany also. But in those days, the epidemiologists and physicians didn't know what to do, so they called, I think I told you the story, they called large animal veterinarians, and they just said, we just shoot the animal if they have it, because it's hard to get rid of. So the only way to get rid of this infection, you can give antihelminthic drugs and they will die, but they'll still be there. So if they're putting a lot of pressure on the brain, you have to kill them and then go in there and resect them. You have to remove them, or that pressure is going to be there forever, and that can be real problematic. Okay? Questions?
How big do they get them? Like, can you see them with your eyes?
XDXX? Oh, yeah. There were some examples of images of X-Sacs on the lectures that we did about parasitology. They're not here. Okay? Questions? All right, let's move on. Yes, what?
Do we need to remember that?
What?
That it affects every cavity of the body?
Pick one. So just say, hey, it causes infections of the lungs or whatever. Okay? So the actual disease is called hiatic disease. That's kind of a real fancy way to say it can infect every place of the body. Okay?
Hiatic.
Hiatic. Hyatid. Okay. So this is, now we're into the nematode. This is Ascaris lubricoides. This is a true roundworm. It's an intestinal worm. It gets into the intestines. And while one of them isn't problematic, a whole bunch of them can be because they can block the intestines. Okay? So here you can see the ova, and there are many different stages of the development of the ova. I only want you to know when it's fertilized, because it becomes bumpy looking. So if you hear the word bumpy come out of my mouth, it is the ova of Ascaris. Huh?
And making a distinction, they look like a turtle shell.
Oh, okay.
So a turtle shell is bumpy, so that's the fertilized ovum.
Okay, I'm not gonna say that, but you can remember that for yourself.
In which case we would identify it as Ascaris or
Ascaris.
Labrisoides.
Huh?
First word?
Just a scare.
First word,
Got it.
because remember, the rule is you need to know the genus only except for those organisms that have multiple representation.
Got it.
Okay? So here's the male and the female. The female is always larger because she's gravid. What does gravid mean, Al?
Contains.
Contains with egg. Gravid means with egg. So she's always plump because she's always, if you will, pregnant. All right? The male is a little tiny dude, and he's got a little hook at the end, and that little hook at the end is the way that he holds on when they're fertilizing ova.
I remember that.
Good? Let's go on. So this is Trichuris trichura. Did I miss one? No. This is Trichuris trichura. It is the whipworm, and it's called the whipworm because you can see that this part is its somatic structure, but this other part is an extension of it, and that other part is called the whip. So these can cause all kinds of problems in the gastrointestinal tract, right? Dysentery, all kinds of problems. If we have an opportunity to go to lab today, oh my God, is it really that time?
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're not gonna have an opportunity. But I promised the other folks that I would be in there till 2:30, so you all are welcome to go in there and work if you need to. But if we go in there, I can pull them out and you'll see, I have some sections of, calf intestines, and you can see the whipworm in there. It's very easy to see them. They're very large, yeah.
Is the whip used for movement or?
Okay. The ova itself looks like a lemon, or it looks like a football, right, depending on what you would prefer to use. The guys always kind of want to say it's a football, and some ladies will, but a lemon is easy to remember also. You don't think it looks like a lemon?
Looks like
Like a what? Okay, I'm not gonna go with that. Okay.
Yeah, the top one looks like an eyeball.
Okay, well, okay, that's for you all. To me, it looks like a little lemon. Mostly because I grow a lot of lemons and I can see the.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna bring some lemons.
I didn't pick them because it got too cold.
Oh.
So I
That's
covered the
later.
tree up. I'll see if I can pick them. Not today, I got too much. All right, here is Trichuris in the intestines. You can see this is a major infestation.
Oh my God, change it.
All right, let's go to Nicator americanus. This is the bad boy of the group, one of the bad boys of the group. This is the hookworm. This is the one that your granny told you don't, Isabella, don't go walking around the ranch land barefooted because these things can pierce the soft tissue of the toes. This is also the one that some people will get infected with, or at least its cousin, Strongyloides, so they won't have allergies because eosinophils show up.
Mhm.
But if you look at these things, you can see that the ova is oval in shape. And I'm gonna show you so that there's a margin. There'll always be a margin, okay? So here you can see there's some different, if you will, orbs inside. That's just the mitotic divisions that are going on in there once the organism has been formed, okay?
What do you mean by margin?
The space between the organism developing and the outer surfaces of the ova, okay? So if we look at the male and the female, we can either describe them from the buccal area because their mouth has these things that look like teeth, and they act like teeth, although they're not like our teeth, okay? But they do help to hold on to stuff. We can either learn them from that way, or we can learn them on the posterior end, and at the posterior end, the male has these things called spicules. And the spicules are easy to notice, right? And this one has multiple spicules, but the female does not have spicules, right? They use the spicules to release the sperm. Okay? Which side would you like to learn it from? You want me just to decide when I get there?
What?
No, let's do
Like,
males
is
and
it like-
spicules.
Do you wanna know the spicules then? The posterior end? You don't care, okay, I'll
They're
just.
right there in
So the males have the spicules.
Yeah.
No. Nice.
The females are tapered at the end.
I just need to see this
Right at the
video.
end.
Do you wanna see the spicules? Okay, fine. That's what we'll do. All right. All right, now this is Anaerobus ramicularis. This is one of the more important roundworms because just about everybody's had an infestation of it. This is the pinworm, right? And so you can see the ova itself is really the hardest one to think about because there's not a lot of things that make it unique. The only thing that I will tell you is that there's a round side and a flat side. So if you hear me say there's a round side and a flat side, I'm talking about the ova of Anaerobus, okay? So if we look at this continuation to look at the male and the female is tapered at the posterior end, but the male has one spicule, only one, right? Different than the other guy. So the other thing that's a giveaway is this esophageal bulb or pouch. That's really its intestines, its stomach, and that gives it away because that's the only thing that has it. So if you see that, you know it's going to be Anaerobus. I guess you want to continue on with the tapered end of the spicule. Yes? Good?
The male has
Yeah.
a curly Q every time?
No, it's not curly Q all the time, but it does have the spicule. I will say look at the posterior end of this organism, can you appreciate this thing? And I might ask you what it is.
So the middle has the esophageal, the pouch?
Both of them have it.
Both of them have?
Both of them have it. Okay?
So then,
Yes?
Could you identify the ova by saying it has a clear margin as well, but just without the orbs?
Just a what now?
Without the orbs like the negator does?
I would be okay with that, but I'm not gonna say that, but that's a good way to remember.
I'm just
that.
trying to compare stuff in my head, like
Yeah.
it looks just like the negator ova, but it doesn't have the orbs on it.
I'm okay with that. That is true, but I'm not gonna say
Like the
that.
identifiable circular protrusions.
And the male is always, like the head of it, is it always gonna be kind of more slender than?
They're smaller. If there's more what, slender?
So, cause like compared to the other one kind of looks like the shape of banana for the female, and then male, it kind of like.
Yeah,
looks much smaller
I don't know that I
based
could
on-
say that. I would say that the male is smaller, I would say that. So if I say this is a smaller, this is the smaller of the two organisms being presented, I'm giving you a hint. Unless we're talking about schistosomas, then don't do that. Good? All right, we're getting close. This is Trichinella spiralis. This is the bad boy of the group. It causes a very painful skeletal muscular infection, right? And I'm only gonna show it to you encysted in striated tissue. I will not show it to you any other, I don't think it's fair. It's hard to identify.
You said only will show it in the striated.
In striated muscle,
Yeah, that picture.
okay?
Yeah.
So if you see any type of muscular tissue, then it's gonna be trichinella. And it causes a really, really bad skeletal muscle infection. Painful. Okay? Which brings us to our last organism, which are the heartworms. And I'm only gonna show you the heartworms in this matrix. What matrix is this? Blood. So, and this one, remember, do you remember the other two organisms that were in blood? What were they?
Another fluke?
Don't have a clue?
Another fluke.
Oh, they're not flukes.
The malarial.
Malaria and
The
trypanosoma.
yeah.
Trypanosoma, remember, was on the outside of the cell. It was about 2 or 3 times the size of the erythrocyte. Plasmodium was inside of the cell and it looked like a diamond ring, right? This one is outside of the cell, and that donut smells really good. This was on the outside of the cell, but it is the size of 20 to 30 erythrocytes. It is large.
Is it Plasmodium, and what's the other one that's in the blood?
This is Dirofilaria,
And then the other one?
Trypanosoma and Plasmodium.
Okay, thank you.
Question, this is the only way I'll show it to you. I'm not gonna show you the ova, I'm just gonna show you this structure, this organism in blood. Yes, sir?
These guys attach to the walls of the heart and hang out there?
So
specifically?
it doesn't have to, but it can. It just completely destroys the tissue itself. It digests the tissue, right? And there can be lots of them in there.
So not just heart, it could be everywhere, but they tend to.
They really affect the heart. They cause pulmonary emphysema and the dog will die.
But
He doesn't-
full.
If you had like a 16-year-old dog and she has cancer, and then you found out she had heartworms, would you treat her? Or
I would
just let
hug that dog to death, but I would not treat her.
her- Right.
Especially if it's a larger dog.
Literally something like that.
Yeah. I would hug that dog to death, but I would not treat her. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That would be, somebody else would spend a lot of money on that dog, but it's not gonna have a good quality of life.
It's really, it's brutal on them to treat them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially for little dogs.
Is the male?
I feel like you'll notice our president. Let me change the practical.
Yeah, it is I'm not gonna show you that, I promise. Okay, so we have a few more organisms to look at.
Where? Oh.
Exoparasites, huh?
Yeah, so I want you to be sure you know what the louse look like. This is pediculus, right? This is, and it has a little hook, right? Nice little structured organism. It is an insect or an arachnid?
Is it insect?
It's an insect. It's got 6 legs. These are the nits, right? There it is in the hair. Then this is the crab louse. He's got pinchers, right? And which parts of the body can it infest? The eyebrows and the pubic area. Okay? And this is Phtharis.
Crabs.
Huh?
The crabs.
Crabs. This is Chimex. This is the bed bug. That's what he looks like. That's what I'll show you, if I show it to you.
You have to burn it with fire.
Or heat.
I don't know why, but I have this like irrational fear that one day I'm gonna become like really infected with bed bugs.
Infested, yeah.
Yeah,
Infested.
and that's what I meant, but like, I have this like, this fear, I'm not even joking, I check my house at least once a month. We don't go anywhere, we don't stay anywhere, I just check my house, like,
That's a little, you're getting a little bit too out
I'm
there.
terrified of them.
All right, now this is a tick. This is amblyoma. That's the only tick I will ask you about. There are many species of tick. I've selected amblyoma because it's known as the Lone Star tick. And I just think so. If you're in Texas, you ought to have something. What are you making faces at?
Look how many ticks there are.
Yeah, that is they're not taking care of that animal at all.
It's pretty common.
You're not supposed to have
Don't go to Mississippi.
That's a goat.
Yeah, it is. All right. Now we get into scabies, right? So this is a mite, this is an arachnid, just like a tick was, right? And you only need to know the genus, right, Sarcoptes, which is a beautiful word.
Say it again.
Sarcoptes.
Sarcoptes.
And then, here's the chigger. Now with the chigger, look at that word, right? Neotrombicula. How about if I show it to you, I just ask what's the common name of these things?
Chicker.
That'd be great. That was very dramatic.
So you
Okay?
just want us to know chiggers?
Chiggers,
Okay.
okay? Unless you all really wanna know.
No, chiggers.
It's kind of a nice neotrombicula. It's pretty nice to say.
So just be like, thorough about it. So the common name you will ask will be chiggers.
That's chigger.
Everybody in my house calls them red bugs.
Red bug, if you said red bugs, I would accept it.
Okay.
Because my wife calls them red bugs also.
That's
It
just
must
what
be-
I think
And
of.
she grew up in New Braunfels. It must be like that area, New Braunfels.
I have no idea. I
It
say
must be
stuff that my
area.
husband thinks is weird.
I said, I've never heard of them called red bugs. And they do.
So all the bites between the bed bugs and the chiggers and all the things kind of like look the same, but you'll be showing us the organism too, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna show you any of the symptomology. I'm just gonna show you the organism.
I'm so itchy.
Would that be an insect more like the?
It is, this is an arachnid. They have 8 legs.
Those ones only show 6 of them.
No, there's a couple more underneath.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's a good point though. I mean, hey, listen up. So Sarah's brought up a good point. That one looks like it only has 6 legs. It actually has 2 smaller ones. You can't really see them. But if you don't know, you can raise your hand and say, Proby, how many legs are we looking at? And I will clarify for you. Okay?
Insects are 6 and the arachnids are 8.
Uh-huh. Good. This is kind of what it looks like, but that, to me, that's not a very good image. I like that one better. But that one doesn't show all the legs.
So we're the only insects we've seen are the louse, right?
No, the bed bug also.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
I was gonna do fleas, but I decided to take them out. But there's a couple more, insects coming up that I want you to know
Okay.
at the very end. So the last thing I want you to know is what's the difference between a mechanical and a biological vector, okay? So here's the roach, it is a mechanical, here's the mosquito. It is a- Why are you making faces?
Sorry, I just have like
An aversion
scenes
to them.
going through my head.
This is a biological vector, right? And so I want you to know the 3 genera of Texas. 80s. How do you know it's 80s?
Stripes.
Stripes on the legs. See how much you know. How do you know it's anopheles?
Chubby boy.
It's rotund, right?
That's nice.
I like that word.
They're
rotund.
fat.
It's chunky.
Chubby.
It's thick. All right. And how do you know it's culex?
They have the long
Yeah,
legs.
yeah,
It's
No, it's
tiny.
Tiny.
It's tiny. It's a little bitty one.
Oh, I just think they look
Okay. Ladies and gentle dudes,
flat.
done. It is time to celebrate. Not really, but yeah.